as Linda said, and for those with a keen eye amongst you, I'm Tom and this is Antonia. We are from OMD, we're both digital strategy directors. And part of what OMD calls an OMD word, which is a social specialist division, which pulls in people from different parts of the business to sort of become a bit of a specialist unit within OMD. So we're going to talk to you today about social, the biggest challenges and sort of greatest innovations and opportunities for it. If I can get this to work. Down. So we've only got half an hour to talk to you about a subject which really we could spend the whole morning talking to you about. So we've kind of highlighted just a few points to talk to you about. Give you a bit of background on the social landscape, a global view followed by some local stats. Then, I guess because of the evolution of social media and the countless ways in which it can be used in digital marketing, we'll just show you a few best case scenarios and examples of how to, or how best to heighten awareness, to stay close to consumers and keep them engaged, and how it can be used to uncover insights. And then lastly, we'll touch on measurement, which is actually one of the greatest challenges within social itself. So we'll start by showing you a video. Now, I apologise if some of you have seen this already, but I think it's well worth watching it again. There's plenty to take from it. So I think it's about 3 minutes long. Hopefully, if I can just press in there. Hold on. Is there a bit? Oh, it's not embedded. All right. So some quite frightening stats in there. You know, so social is without doubt mass, and it's our job to educate clients on how best to use that with their marketing. But I want to bring it local. I want to concentrate on the 4 main properties in Australia at the moment. Hit you with some stats. Facebook is the 2nd most popular site in Australia behind Google. I guess that's no surprise to anyone. There are 10 million users on Facebook, which is about 2/3 of the online population. 67% of those people are logging in daily, which is incredible. And then spending just under 30 minutes. So the time spent on Facebook is phenomenal when compared to other platforms. YouTube, as the video said, it's the 2nd largest search engine behind Google. In itself has a reach of 7.5 million, which is just over 50% of the online population. And it has 62% of people who are returning once a week. Twitter, it's about 1/4 of the size of Facebook, so about 2.5 million accounts. And it's actually not as young as some people might think, with only 16% of users aged under 24. LinkedIn is definitely the most aggressive rise in numbers over the last 12 months, even more than Facebook. And this is a sign of the times, I guess, in that there's now over 12,000 professionals listed with social media in their title description. So one of the biggest challenges we have is not just educating clients on what social media is. I think they all get that now. But it's actually getting them to understand how and why they should be using it. You know, it's not all just about chasing the numbers and getting your followers and your fan base. What we have to do is make sure that there is a purpose and a reason as to everything they're doing, and making sure that we're guiding them through it and making sure that they're really getting the best out of it as they possibly can do. So here I'll hand you over to Antonia.
Okay, so you've just seen that Australians are really very social. They're one of the most social nations on earth. So how does this affect what marketers do? This is a big challenge in this space. I'm sure you've all seen from yourself how much social media actually changes. You know, Facebook changes the way its interface is every couple of months, to a surprise to a lot of people. And that continually challenges marketers about how to behave in that space. So it's obviously part of our role to give them the best guidance we can on how to behave, so we'll take you through that. But let's go back a little bit to traditional media and see how this shift in consumers' behaviour has really changed the way that marketers need to behave now. So, back in the old days before Facebook and the internet, the brand spoke to the consumers, so it was a one-way communication, so it was always that. Either from their owned media, which might be from their website or from their store, they would speak to the consumers and through their paid news, so through their TVC, through their radio, through their magazine ad. There would be a one-way communication. And what's happened now is there's this third channel almost called earned media, which I'm sure you've all heard of, which has really shifted the way people move. So brands are still continuing to do that messaging to consumer through paid media. But consumers can now talk to consumers. So consumers can say, I really like this product because, or I don't like this product because of this. So that conversations have always been happening in the real world, but now they're cemented in the digital space. So now they're permanently archived. If you search for a product, those reviews from real consumers will come up. Think of the amount of times you've gone to book a hotel and you've looked on TripAdvisor and you've taken people's advice that you've never met before and booked your hotel based on that recommendation. And then the third part is obviously that consumer being able to talk back to the brand. So a lot of way that consumers are using social media is to, almost as a customer service space. So it could be someone going on to Telstra or, Vodafone more likely saying that, I can't use my phone in this area, what's happening? And Vodafone can ideally get straight back to them and let them know when the problem's going to be fixed. But, without people having to wait on the line for so long, this is an instant gratification really for the consumer, but also for the brand. As I said, this is really important. People can make their opinions wherever they want, and 86% of people trust recommendations from online strangers more than they do advertising. this is a pretty phenomenal stat. So people are going to trust what other people are saying about a brand more than the brand itself. So, you know, brands really do need to embrace this space and make sure that they're in the right place and they are, you know, feeding back to consumers if there is any misrepresentation, or, you know, if they're launching or they've changed the product. And then what this does is, in terms of our strategy roles, we need to compartmentalize the different ways that we now buy digital media. So we've still got paid media, which we've been doing, you know, for a long time now, which is that still tell me that one brand to the consumer conversation, which is about tell me messaging. So that's standard media, rich media, video media, promotions, partnerships, search. That's all pretty standard, but then the more interesting space is the earned media. So that's convince me, engage me, the consumer's in control there. So that could be asking people to rate a product, forums, you know, mums forums for baby products, for example, Facebook polls and updates, Twitter, viral seeding, organic search, so where the SEO rankings are for different products, and users' comments as well. And then you've got the own media space, so that's all about inform, reward, support me. So that could be a brand's Facebook page, website, Twitter page, the content on their page, or another site's page, videos with content, the point of sale and their packaging, brand ambassadors. A lot of brands are building armies of brand ambassadors to say good things about their product in that word of mouth space. And then apps and widgets, so whether it's an iPad, iPhone app or widget that sits on your desktop. So it's really, you know, not all brands need to play in that space, but at the moment they're not, but I think that's where they need to be thinking about moving towards, because it really is, you know, embracing that future and making sure the brand isn't just constantly doing that tail messaging, because that's definitely old school and it's definitely going to be phased out. So we need to start embracing that earned media space. So now we're going to look at a couple of ways that you can amplify this messaging through Facebook, mainly with paid media. Because it is, you know, we've got 10 million plus Australians on Facebook. So how are the different ways we can reach them through paid media, but pulling in that earned media as well? So the first one is a Facebook reach block. I'm sure you've all seen these. You know, it's quite a humble ad. It's a text, an image next to it. You can like it, you can do polls in it, you can run videos in it. You know, you can do lots of things, but I think the most amazing stat is that you can reach nearly 5 million people in 24 hours. There is no other media that can do that, and it costs below 50k. You know, when you think of how powerful that is compared to running a spot on, you know, packed to the rafters, it's not a touch on 5 million. And then the other example we've got is YouTube. It's a lot more impactful. So, you know, you've got a lot more space for the brand to play in. It's still got a pretty significant reach, 1.4 million in 24 hours. But you know, they've both got different roles. So I'll go on to the role of why I think the Facebook reach block is so powerful, apart from the fact that it's very cost efficient for the size of its reach. So what Facebook does is it leverages people's social context. So the reason you go onto Facebook is to connect with your friends and see what's happening in the world, right? So I might see a Facebook reach block ad that my friend or two of my friends have voted on the poll, or they've watched the video. I am then 68% more likely to recall that ad. So the social context of me seeing that my friend Tom has liked, you know, New Zealand tourism, for example, I'm much more likely to recall that ad. I'm 2 times more likely to remember the message and have that message awareness. And then I'm 4 times more likely to purchase that product. So the social context in Facebook, I think, is unparalleled to any other media, because they're not just random people, they're people you know. So you're much more likely to say, hey, if that person's interested in that ad, I'm probably going to be interested in that ad as well, because we share similarities in terms of what we like. And then what Facebook did recently was release a product called Sponsored Stories, which I'm sure you've all seen. They sit on the homepage or in your next to your newsfeed, or sometimes within your newsfeed, and they'll basically say that you know, Tom Rolph likes Johnson's Baby, as he might now, but they'll you know, and then because Tom has liked that ad, they serve that up to me because I'm one of his friends. So again, it's looking at what is interesting to you and your friends and pulling that into the newsfeed. And I think the power of sponsor stories is, for Johnson's Baby, which is one of our clients, they've got just over 20,000 fans in the Australia space. From that, they've got potential to reach 3.5 million people. So that's friends of people that are fans of the page. That's a pretty large amount of people to extend that reach to. So the more they serve the other people like the page, or other people have commented on this post on the page, it's a way of bringing that social engagement to the forefront again leveraging that social context. And then I'm going to hand you over to Tom for the next section.
So Antonia took you through paid media, but what about the community? Once you've got people liking your page or liking your community, your brand, how do you need to behave to keep them interested, to keep them coming back? And this is all about community management. So here you need to aim for active users, not fans. It's no use having 200,000, 500,000 fans and followers if they're not engaged and they're not coming back to you. And Antonia took you through examples of how paid advertising can do that. But in terms of earned media as well, every time someone engages with your page, it's published onto your newsfeed, and then fans, and then it's all pushed out to all of your friends. So this earned media can just make it so efficient and spiral out of control, and take it beyond broadcast and paid media itself. So really, you need to have a content strategy, and there's a number of ways in which you can keep people coming back and deepen engagement. And I guess we'll show you a few of them. First up, it's a utility. Give them something that can actually add value to their lives, an application or a widget, or even a service. Then it's a reward. You know, this is really important to reward consumers for liking your brand, for they're actively going out of their way to like your brand. You want to be able to reward them for that. And that way they'll keep coming back, and then you can turn them from regular consumers into brand loyalists and advocates. And then thirdly, it's entertainment. If you've got loads of content, use it. You know, if you haven't, create it, because this is really something that, again, is going to get people coming back. Whether it's a game, whether it's behind the scenes clips or whatever it is, just keep publishing things to make sure that the guys are coming back. And I'll run you through a few examples. This is an example that we ran for J&J Johnson's Baby with the Tresillian nurses, and it's a great example of how you can provide a service to consumers. It helped nearly 2,000 parents with newborn problems, and we've got a video which will actually explain this in much more detail. Let us get ahead from it. let it just load up and maybe come back to it at the end. Okay, so we'll come back to utility. Rewarding loyalty. These are two best examples. They're global, they're both US based. Both Starbucks and Gap used Facebook to reward their fans by giving them promotions and offers if they came in store and sort of checked in through places or deals. Gap's campaign ran, it actually gave away 10,000 pairs of jeans to the first 10,000 people that came through the store and checked in, and pushed messages out through Facebook news feeds. Whereas Starbucks, who, to be honest, I think are probably the leaders in terms of social media over the last year, offered all sorts of freebies and goodies when they go into stores, so free coffins, free muffins, etc. Which is great because not only does that help them in terms of recruitment and actually have the most amount of followers or fans on Facebook, but they're also the most engaged brand online as well, and they've got millions of actively engaged, so they keep coming back to the page and keep going back into store as well, so it's really getting that regular consumer. But one watch out here, and something that we work very closely with our clients with, is actually, this is all very well and good, but it's not, this kind of thing isn't open to everyone. Obviously clients who don't have this technical capabilities at their back end can't really do this kind of thing. So you need to be wary before you speak to your clients that they can actually run this kind of stuff. Third thing is about entertainment. Now this was a campaign that Nike ran last year around the Football World Cup. You probably saw it. It was everywhere. It had the Right to the Future video, which had the likes of Rooney and Ronaldo in the clip. And what they did was actually, before they posted the video through broadcast media and paid media, they set everyone to, they made announcements on through social, through Twitter and through Facebook, to get people to come to their Facebook page at a particular time and day to actually be the first to see this video. And then, once they were there, they asked people to sort of spread it viral to get that earned media. And it was #1 viral video in its debut week. It drove 169 million organic news feeds and profile stories, and had 38% ad recall. But I think the most important and interesting thing is that actually, in terms of measurement, Nike received twice as many mentions during the World Cup in social space than Adidas, who are the actual World Cup sponsors. So it just shows the power that social media has in, amongst more mainstream media.
Okay, so we've gone through how brands behave on Facebook and how they drive users through to their fan pages and their own media. And then Tom just took you through 3 techniques we think work well to maintain people and you know, use that social presence. But then what benefit is this also to the brand? I think it's a really interesting space in the way that brands can now listen and learn to their consumers in their own media space. You know, there's chances to ask questions, there's chances to react to questions. When we look at the traditional model of focus groups, which still, you know, have their part to play in terms of qualitative data, you know, you've got a boardroom with a few whiteboards and pens and 9 people kind of asking questions and answering questions around a brand. But then when you look at the amount of fans that Diet Coke has, it's pretty small, but it's over 1 million. You go from 9 people in a room to having over 1 million people give you feedback on your brand. That is pretty powerful in terms of the amount of people you can actually have answer questions. So the scale has really shifted, and brand marketers really need to use that to their advantage. We've had a couple of examples. Nicorette is one of my brands, so we've asked Facebook fans, what's the hardest cigarette of the day to give up? You know, is it morning, is it that coffee break, is it lunchtime, is it last one before you go to bed? And they can help us shape our media behaviour. So most people said the first one in the morning is the hardest cigarette to give up. So then that helps us then shape our TV, radio, digital activity to actually be focused more in the morning, because that's when we know people are going to be more, you know, it's going to have more of an impact for people that are looking for that quitting smoking messaging coming through. So there's lots of different ways that you can use it, so you can ask questions, and you know, feedback to fans as well on those pages. Here's a couple of interesting ways that people have taken that, I guess, another step further. So developing new products. Mountain Dew is a pretty innovative brand, especially obviously in the States where its heartland is. But what it did was ask the people on Facebook to create a new flavour. This thing called the Dewmocracy. So in 2010, you know, they got people to submit what they new flavour. They did a whole big road trip around America. It was all pretty exciting from what I can see. And then they asked their Facebook fans to vote on their favourite flavour. They released that into stores and obviously got phenomenal sell-through rate. So it's a great way of engaging people that are really actively your brand ambassadors, asking them what they want. What do they want back from you? And the second one I think is pretty nice as well. It's from Rolph Honey. They're a pretty small brand. I haven't actually heard of them. But what they did is they asked their marketing team to create TVCs. So, you know, maybe it was tough economic times, I don't know, but I quite like what they did. They split their marketing team into 6 teams, and they challenged them to create their own TVC. So for the next TVC to advertise Rolph Honey. And then they released those 6 TVCs onto their Facebook page and asked the public to vote. And then obviously put that TVC onto the broadcast channel of television and cinema. So again, just a really nice way of getting those consumers that are really interested in your brand enough to like you and say, yep, I like Rolph Honey, and ask them to give back to your brand and tell you what's most relevant and interesting to them. So just a couple of case studies there. And then Tom's going to take you through measurement.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is measurement. You know, it's actually a really interesting challenge for us, because the most important thing with not just social, with digital itself, but social adds so many more different permutations, is actually to measure what matters. You know, I think we're our own worst enemy sometimes, because we can actually report on so many metrics that we need to make sure that we only report on the ones that matter, and that it's so important that you define these up front, so you have benchmarks that that refer back to your objectives that you can then use in terms to define whether the campaign was a success or not. So, you know, I've got a few here. You know, it's not just, as I said before, it's not just about getting Facebook fans in there. It's the amount of clients that we get just who want to do Facebook activity because they want to increase their fan base. We have to hold their hands and guide them through this, because there's a number of different metrics that we can take, and I've grouped them up into 4. The first of which is, you know, was the objective of the campaign awareness, or recruitment, in which case we can start to measure things like reach and unique visitors, the amount of likes or posts that we get on the page. Do we want to measure participation? You know, is it important to get people spending time with your brand, taking part in promotions, sharing and entering competitions? Or do we want to try and change perceptions? So, in which case we would need to work way in advance and set up social media monitoring studies, so that we can actually gauge how people are perceiving your brand over that period of time in the social sphere. Or do we want to drive sales or other ROI metrics? So, you know, again, if it was a service offering, do we measure that by the number of support tickets or calls through or live chats that we saw with the J&J example? But, as I said, most importantly, these need to be agreed up front and really sort of benchmark, so you can then evaluate the success of any campaign. So we're going to leave you with 3 key takeaways. There are plenty more to discuss, but the three we've highlighted for you today are all about amplifying the messaging. So is it a broadcast message that we're trying to achieve, and you can do that through many sort of social channels and then get your earned media off the back of it. Really think about how you can deepen engagement before you go into any social strategy. You need to make sure that people are coming back and engaging with your brand products. And then use it as a tool. It's the world's biggest focus group. Antonia showed you some examples of how other clients are using it, and it's out there, it's free for you, so make the most of it. And that's what we had for you today. Does everyone have any questions?
Can we watch the video? Can we watch the video?
Oh yes, sorry. It was just a big spiral. Where is it? We'll go back to start. Does anyone have any questions?
No questions on social media?
All right.
Like it's the one that we always get, we want to know more about it. I figured, cool, thanks.
All right.